Joining us on the podcast once again today is a returning champion to this show. Of course, a man you know best as the head coach of a team that is back into the Sweet 16 after their 4-0 victory over FAU in round two. Join me in welcoming back onto the podcast Duke women's tennis head coach Jamie Ashworth. Coach, it is always good to see your smiling face. Welcome back to the show. How are you and the Blue Devils feeling as you get ready for the Sweet 16?
Great. Happy to be here. Happy to be able to talk to you this week. It's been a couple years since we've been in this position. So yeah, but no, happy to be still playing and excited to be still playing and have a group that's excited to be still playing.
No,
So
absolutely. And I will say, last night we recorded our podcast previewing the Sweet 16. Both John Parsons and I ranked your upcoming match against Auburn as our number one match of this of this Sweet 16 weekend. So, yeah, I think we're all looking forward to watching the Blue Devils compete here this weekend. And before I get too deep into that match, I do want to take things back a little bit. And of course, you were
yeah,
kind enough to join the podcast during the season, but if I go all the way back to the month of January, that kickoff weekend, when your team obviously takes a heartbreaking 4-3 loss to Virginia, if I'd have told you then this team would be the number 8 seed and into the Sweet 16, would you have taken it?
I would have taken it. Yeah. I thought that you never know with draw, you never know with matchups. I thought that, obviously even without having lived there at that point, we had a good win over Michigan. But I thought that, I was excited about this team. I've loved working with this team. There's teams that you're like, I can't wait till the season's over. But I think that this team, obviously we didn't have a great ACC tournament, losing how we did to Virginia. I mean, semis of the ACC tournament, when you look back on it, it's not bad when you have six ACC teams still in the 16. And so, but I think we felt like on our end it was a disappointing loss, so yeah, we're happy to be where we are. We're excited to be where we are, and obviously looking forward to a good weekend here.
For your team to run through their ACC season undefeated as they did in the regular season,
Yeah.
how helpful, said with love, is that loss to Virginia going into the NCAA tournament? How helpful were that 2 weeks to just be able to reset things with this group?
Yeah, I think you never want to lose, but I think if you look back even earlier in the year, the loss that we had previously to that was against Ohio State, and there was a heart-to-heart conversation on the courts for a long time following that match, the days following that match, and I think we kind of regrouped and put ourselves in a good mental frame of mind, and I think after that Virginia loss, we did the same thing. We sat down and sometimes those talks aren't easy, and especially when they're team led, and you have to be able to take accountability as a team, and I think our team did that, and they've responded with some of the best practices that we've had all year, and so we're excited to see where that takes us.
Yeah. No, I ran the numbers. Here's a big number for you. I believe it's 18. 18 matches since Liv Hovde became eligible. Is that enough for a team to find the best version of itself? Like, as you've had the chance to obviously play through different things, feels like you guys have very good continuity in doubles, obviously. But do you feel like now, 18 matches with Hovde, you guys have found your rhythm, who should be where, what this team should feel like in a dual match environment?
I think so. I think it's an interesting, you talk to a team after the match, and for two of the kids, or even like against Virginia, we have two kids that win fairly easily, and everyone's upset, and so it's just an interesting dynamic as a sport, with on the individual side and talking to them and trying to do stuff together as a team and pulling them together as a team. But I think everyone understands their role, and everyone knows that, especially against this Auburn team on Friday night, that everyone has to do their role to the best of their ability, and whether that's supporting from the side, whether that's coaching, whether that's playing. I mean, that's what it takes to win these matches. And I honestly don't think people on the outside understand how hard it is to win and to consistently win, and whether it's through a season or history of a program, or it's hard to win matches, and it's hard to win at this level, And in this sport and in other sports as well. I mean, talking to John Shire, our basketball coach, and obviously they had a disappointing end to their year, and but we were talking about how hard it is to win, and people just look at names and look at things, say, oh, okay, they're going to be this team and that team, and but there's a lot more that goes into it than that. And so, but I think we're in a good spot. I think that everyone, like I said, we've been very clear with roles and expectations, and kind of had to, like you said, had to reset after that Virginia match and talk about some things that maybe aren't comfortable, and but we have a some mature leaders there, and it's been good.
As a tenured coach, I say that to evoke a smile on your
Yeah.
face. Um,
Yeah.
those conversations are the most fascinating to me. Those are the conversations that obviously every tennis fan wants to imagine their teams are having. Has it gotten easier with time to have those conversations with groups? Like, to your point, that can go one of two ways. You feel like a team can receive that really well, or obviously a team can get a little bit angry and a little antsy and maybe lose it from there. How important is it, the leadership piece, that if those leaders are receiving the message, then everyone else will as well? Is that with Emma and Ellie as
Yeah.
experienced as they are, how helpful has that been to having those conversations?
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think being around, you kind of know, you can feel the pulse of your
Yeah.
team a little bit better, and you want to make sure that the leaders, even though they may not agree with you, they have your back, and kind of the same thing, and they may say something, or whoever it is, Chloe Beck, a Georgia Drummy, Kelly Chen, whoever, they may say something that maybe I don't agree with, but as the leader of their team, I have to have their back as well. And I think you learn that, and I think you understand that. And I think as you get older, it's less important to want everybody to like you. You want to be respected, and whether that's myself as a coach or older on a team. I think it's, you come in as a freshman and you want everyone to like you. You don't want to rock the boat, like that kind of thing. And but you have to make sure that as you grow, that you keep the standards that you've set for your program, and whether that's standards that I've set as a coach or Danny set as a coach, or Ellie and Emma have set within the program. And so, and you have to be true to those standards. And so we've been working hard on that, and trying to make sure that they understand that. And if you say something that upsets, four people, you still may be saying the right thing, and you can't worry about just being liked all the time. And as you said, being a tenured coach, I think early in my career, you're like, okay, I got to make sure I don't step on anyone's back or anything like that. Now it's, I think you have to make sure you're doing things that are right, and handling things the right way. And so, and so those conversations, I don't think they get easier. I think they get you a little bit more comfortable in those moments, and just you know with experience, and hopefully your team responds the right way.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. In a film room session, is it easy? I mean, I'm sure it's a combination of the both. But are you someone who prefers to be like, okay, why did you do that? Or do you like watching the player watch it themselves and have them go, oh my God, what was I thinking? Like, I'm sure it is a balance of both, but what do those film sessions actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Danny and Gerard do a
Yeah.
lot of the film stuff. I think I'm more of a communicator, and the girls would attest to that a little bit. Like what was the thought process behind that shot? What was the thought process? Why are you trying that at this time? Or what were you thinking? And even in practice, we'll stop them and be like, what, give me your, not, what the hell was that kind of thing, but like, what were you trying to do on that ball, or what was the thought process? Just, I think with on the female side, it's especially on the female side, yeah, there's the girls that we've had in our program, they're much more communicators, and they're much more they don't respond so much to the negative yelling, negative getting angry. And so I think that we can build relationships off of our okay, let's talk about it. Why did you do that? What were you thinking at this point? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. This is a very tennis centric question, just to follow up off of that. In how you communicate with players on court, like discussing those patterns, How has your coaching changed during your tenure in the patterns that you accentuate and emphasize? Like, has it gotten difference of 2007, it's, hey, we're taking this +1 forehand line versus 2025, first forehand's not going to do it because these athletes are just too crazy. Like, how has that changed?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Encore coaching's a interesting thing to me because most of these girls come in and they've never had encore coaching before. And then also there's I want to go play after school and you're not going to get encore coaching.
Sure.
And so I want them to have some accountability to what they do. And maybe as a freshman they make some mistakes and then they understand. But also the dynamic of we've had people, Alex, honestly, that Chloe Beck, a perfect example. If you sat down and talked about where you want her to hit a ball or anything, she would honestly shoot you in the head. If you talk about like, hey, let's do this, like she would just look at you and get up and walk away. She would want to sit there and talk about what's for dinner tonight or what can we do after this. And so I think on-court coaching is a lot of understanding the individual. Mabel Chi, another great player that we've had in the past, was someone that she just wanted someone there she didn't even want to talk. It was just like a high five, hey, you're doing the right thing, and then the flip side of that, you have like Emma Jackson, who's like, hey, tell me what I need to do, what I have to do in this moment, that kind of stuff. And so I think a lot of it is it hasn't changed in that you have to understand the player and understand their mindset because you don't want to give them too much to think about. Um, I think a lot of, especially when you get in the doubles, you just on those changeovers, you have time for, one momentum swing, and that's it. The doubles is way, way too fast to really make coaching adjustments. Maybe you can make an adjustment for, one or two adjustments, but really that's it. But the singles, I think it's understanding the person, understanding the player, and are they someone that likes the technical? Hey, I'm missing my forehand. What am I doing? Or I'm gonna figure my forehand out. What can I do to my opponent and that kind of stuff. And so I think it's much more. It's just different for everybody. It's
Sure.
much more personal and what they need and what they want. And as a coach, understanding that, and not everybody's the same. 8 girls on our roster and 8 different personalities, and they need 8 different things, and that includes while they're playing. I mean, everybody on our team now is different. How Danny, Gerard, and I handle them on the courts.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. It is my favorite question to ask, usually when I'm off the record. What do you tell a player in this moment, XYZ, whomever it is? And my favorite response is how many coaches go, a lot of times I just go, hey, what if we made some balls at this point? And
Yeah,
it's like it really is that simple. Like you're right. There are of course some players who are like, no, 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 let's do this game plan. Who want that sort of specificity. But it's just again, in my quest to someday have you all mic'd up, I can't wait to hear how many it's just like, hey, good job. Like, let's make another one
yeah,
here. Let's do it.
yeah,
And it's a credit to all of you. Again, the coaching has gotten better, and certainly as we
yes,
reach
for
this
sure.
this stage of the tournament, there will be some serious coaching down the home
And
stretch.
across the board, to be honest with you, I mean, in my 30 years, the coaching's gotten way better and a ton better, and the assistants are better, and staying in the game longer, and obviously with technology, you can do more, learn more, and about opponents and yourself. So
Yeah. Well, in that spirit of learning more, again, looking at the Duke Blue Devils, for those that don't know, entering this weekend's round of 16, I believe you guys are now 23-3. Yeah, shout out to still remember the numbers. 23-3 overall. I have it in front of me, just so everyone knows. I just had to find it. What match did you learn the most about your team this season, or whether it's learn the most, proudest of? What was the match that stuck out to you?
Um, that's a great question. I think the Michigan match, coming back after the loss to Ohio State, 48 hours earlier, I think how we responded as a team and how they made a commitment to really play for each other. That match stands out against a Michigan team that was coming off a really good indoors and playing that match indoors, which if I were to choose to play Michigan on paper, I'd say let's play them outside. And nothing against Ronnie or Ronnie's team, but they've especially that time of year they're not hitting a lot of balls outside, and so that match, and then the back-to-back NC State UNC. Obviously, those are some of our tougher matches, and the ability to come back and be better the second day than the first day in those matches, and really playing together and not letting especially on the UNC one, not letting losing the doubles point really bother us and getting out there and playing. But if I had to pick a kind of a trio, I'd say those three. The Michigan match, we talk about the Michigan match still a lot, and how we answered the bell after that Ohio State loss, because we were going through a stress there. You had we had lost to Virginia, we lost to Ohio State, and honestly they it could have gone either way at that point. You never know. And I think the response was great.
A lot of reason to point to that match. You can draw a direct through line to that win and finishing top 8 and getting to host this weekend. The margins were ultimately that thin at the end. You did mention the North Carolina match. Slight tangent, asked with love. Why play that match on a Wednesday?
To be honest, the way our conference does it with travel partners, the travel partner you can choose when to play that match. I would prefer a Friday evening, and the way that it's kind of set up a little bit as well is that the home team on that travel partner gets a little bit of pick in that. And um, we're looking at, I know Brian and I talk about it all the time, like, if we play that on a Wednesday, we have a chance to give our team maybe a weekend off.
Gotcha.
I know it's not great, although I know you guys talk about, you and John talk about attendance and that kind of stuff. That match was packed. I
Yeah.
mean, we still, by playing it in the later in the evening, and trying to bring community involvement into that by being able to play that at night. I don't understand why some of these regionals are playing at 10 a.m. like you guys don't. And um, but that was the main reason, is trying to, okay, if we play this on a Wednesday, we both get a weekend day off with SMU kind of as a rover, and just the way the conference does the schedule.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And to your point, it is a rivalry match. It's Tobacco Road, easy travel. There were fans in seats. It wasn't a criticism
Yes.
of the environment. It was more just a
Yeah.
curiosity of you don't see a lot
Yeah.
of Wednesday matches, so that's fascinating. And this is something we have discussed before, but it's something I want to ask every coach with the perspective of it is worth noting, despite all the rankings talk. Tennessee 7 in their conference tournament, 10 in the country. Like the ACC and SEC both have 6 teams into the Sweet
Yeah.
16. So as you reflect upon it, that decision to play every team in the conference or not to, as you all made. Any changes on your perspective on that? Will you still support, again, not playing? What's your perspective?
My perspective has always been to play.
Yeah.
I think that you get a little bit truer sense, especially in the conference tournament. I mean, um, I think to have that ability to play each other, I don't see it necessary to bring 19 teams to a conference tournament or whatever we did this year and have a conference tournament start on Tuesday. Um, but I would love the opportunity to play each other. It's something that I personally supported and I voted for. I think, you're leaving some ranking points on the table by not playing everybody. Um, I think these conferences were built on playing each other. I mean, in the ACC, I started in the ACC when I think there was 10 teams or 9 teams, something like that. But we've always supported playing each other. It was a big shift for us this year. And we ended up with, I know you guys talked about our schedule a little bit, and we ended up, I felt like a strong schedule playing Stanford, Cal, UNC, NC State. Obviously we didn't get Virginia in a regular season match, but we ended up playing them twice anyway. I think there has to be some willingness too, if you're not playing each other, to still play. Like the conference schedule we don't have NC State on our schedule next year, but we're playing NC State, and actually have talked about maybe playing them twice, and kind of to strengthen both of our schedules as well. And so I think you have to have some flexibility as a coach, but I think everyone should for sure play each other. There's no reason for us as a conference to have 2 off weekends in the conference season.
Yeah, it's a fair perspective, one I tend to agree with. I will say, just for your interest, Coach Calbus made the best case I have heard yet for not playing everyone in his
Yeah.
interview. Just one to
Yeah.
throw out there if everyone wants to go listen to it. That's what we in the business call a tease. But I was the first time I'd heard the case and go, you know what? That does make some sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, but
Problem is the one of the problem, the scheduling problem that that we've run into a little bit is unless you've been locked into like you can't get a SEC match,
yeah,
and he's been locked in with a Georgia, a regular season match with Georgia and maybe one or two others, and it's hard to add
yeah,
to people that haven't had that opportunity. And so we used to play Georgia every year, and Jeff, we stopped that with Jeff. And I think if you can build it up, I think it's great. But I think that there's some responsibility to in the conference as well.
yeah. The idea of that weekend in between kickoff and national indoors that you and UNC go to Georgia or they come to the both of you, I'll sign up for that. Like, just let me know what I
Yeah.
need to sign. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, again, we've talked a lot about the season. Haven't gotten into the specifics of your players yet, and there is, we've talked about your seniors already, but looking at the numbers now, Emma's 14-5 in dual match play. Ellie is 18-2. To have them setting the tone that they have set for an otherwise kind of really young team. Just talk me through what's allowed them to find this sort of performance in their final season.
Yeah, I think understanding they both have done a great job of understanding what it takes to get this. The season's long,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what it takes to get through the season, and trying to share that knowledge with the others on our team, and setting an example. You never want to be just all talk and no actions, and they've both backed up what they talk about in the locker room in tough moments and good moments, whatever it is, and they've backed it up on the court, which is a great thing. It's a great thing as a coach and as a staff, when your leaders are also, some of your hardest workers, and they can set the example. And they've both been solid for us, and we need both moving forward. It's we've had a little bit of a luxury this year of not having to rely on three players, or a certain formula that we had to win. I think that that's freed them up a little bit. There's not the pressure of I have to win or we're gonna lose this match. And I think they've just gone out and played, and been really been a part of all kinds of matches in their 4 years, so nothing really is new to them or phases them. And so, we as a team, we've won matches all kinds of ways this year, from what happened at Berkeley to, being down three, whatever it is, we've won matches all different ways. And so, I think their experience in that just has allowed them to just relax and play.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, again, 23 wins. She's only 18-2, but a lot of paths
Yeah,
before run through Ellie. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But no, I completely agree with you. And by the way, I talked about that young aspect. Four players in your lineup who are essentially newcomers to college tennis. Three of them legitimately, obviously, in Arena, in Liv, in Ava. I mean, again, Elena playing her first full season of contributing to your
right.
lineup this year at Duke. What's it like when you've got four newcomers in the lineup? Like, it is funny because it does feel like all of these names have some degree of pedigree because of what they have
Right.
accomplished on a tennis court, and yet it is still a relatively newly composed team. How is that dichotomy played out?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting when we have the very young side, and then you even like you throw in like a older Shavit
Yeah.
Kimchi, age wise, but not college wise. It's a definite. You're talking to in communication, you're talking to a 4 year span of ages and 5 year span of ages and 5 year span of tennis experience. You talk about like Liv, and Liv's got a lot of international experience, but not a heck of a lot of college dual match experience. And it's a different mindset and a different monster that you're trying to overcome when you're out there playing for your teammates, and playing for Duke, and not just yourself and points and that kind of stuff. And so, but I think they've handled it well. Obviously, as I told them the other day, we were sitting down, and I said, I love teams we have 8 girls here with 8 different personalities, to me, that's a great thing. I don't want a team of eight robots and eight of the same personalities and everyone doing the exact same thing. And to me, that would be a boring nightmare as a coach. I like having the different classes. I like having the different backgrounds. I like having the different goals that they have and they come in with and talk about that we kind of have to form and shape but as you said, it's a new experience for 3, 4 of them and there's definitely some nerves and you can see the nerves especially early in the matches even against that first round against Bryant. Yes, are we going to win that match? Yes, but there was still a lot of nerves and it's like let's just play, like go out there and play, like don't worry about the score, don't worry about the opponent, just hit the ball I think that but that's expected. You always hear if people are nervous, that means they care, and we definitely care a lot. So
Yeah, I guess it feels like I should probably ask this question. I'm sure fans tuning in are thinking it on the arena and live side. I think they would both be the first to admit that the results haven't played the way they would have expected for themselves.
sure.
Do you think it's just a majority? It's nerve management. Like, what's the conversation? Knowing, hey, we've got DJ Angela coming to town this weekend. How can you get them to play their best?
Yeah, I think that well, a couple things. I think that this week allows you to, for us anyway. So we're done exams, we're out of finals. Um, And we talked about after last weekend that, okay, let's just be tennis players now. Let's just have fun, be tennis players, be what you guys have been kind of your whole life. Yes, you've been students. Most of them were homeschooled, before coming to college. And let's just be tennis players and let's prepare like tennis players prepare. And I think it's allowed us a little more time to just the way our school schedule worked out and allowed us to prepare the best way that we possibly can. And I think Irina, like she was at match point the other day, and when the match stopped, and so I think in her mind she counts that as a win. So anything can go. Liv was in the third set. And played a really good second set. And so I think there's definite positives to gain from that. And they had a disappointing, both of them had a disappointing ACC match against Virginia. And I felt like that Virginia as a whole was just like on top of us right away. But I think they've both learned and both grown from that. And that's all we can hope and all that we can do is have them be as prepared as we possibly can. I think even, going in, like I said, going in this week, even looking at that Auburn team and Jordan's group. I mean, I think that this week with nothing else going on, it's giving us a better chance to prepare the way that we're capable of preparing.
Yeah, no, I like that. A week let loose from the confines of school.
Yeah.
They're gonna be ready. That's gonna be fun to watch. Has the super regional grown on you, by the way? Just this?
No,
No, it
no,
hasn't.
no. I think it's terrible. I understand it. I understand the home court and stuff. Especially with the no individuals. It was funny. I was talking to the guy that runs our conference tournament from the ACC offices, and he's like, "I don't understand why the NCAA we have more at our conference tournament than the NCAA has at their final site, running both men's and women's together. 36 teams total or something like that, 35 teams at our ACC tournament. Um, you know, I hope it's something that they relook at, and especially if they leave the individual tournament, how it's set up now is bringing all 16 together. Hopefully we're a part of what happens in Waco next week, but I'm also worried for them about the attendance in Waco, to be honest. If there's no A&M or something like that, for example, and what happens, what's the attendance going to be like? You don't have the built-in attendance of the NCAA singles tournament where 64 individuals, coaches, assistant coaches, families are all there watching, and it'd be really disappointing if the women are playing a final and there's 75 people in the stands. I think going back to having 16 teams, and I think obviously moving to the USTA in a couple of years, they could undertake that easily and handle that easily. And in saying that, I'm hoping we have, 700 people here this weekend, and so which is a good possibility, and so we're excited about being able to play that in front of our fans. But for the good of the sport, I really like everyone coming together.
It is fascinating because, yeah, with Orlando turning into that final site as it will be for much of the next decade, we were spoiled. Like in 21, Florida made the final on the men's side, and boy, did
Yeah.
those fans who got there early were they treated to something special in that Texas Pepperdine final as well. And yeah, 23, I thought Carolina traveled pretty well down there for the women's final. It is all going to be fascinating. Like you're right, with it in Waco, I did think to myself, like, oh man, if Oklahoma State gets there, that's an easy bus ride. Like now all of a sudden we will have fans across the board, but it will be fascinating to monitor, certainly.
Yeah.
And again, one more weekend for the Duke Blue Devils to get to see their team at home. One more weekend for Emma Ellie to get to compete
Yeah.
at home here this weekend. My last few questions for you. If you could go back and reallocate your time to whatever one thing in practice, what might be the one thing you wish you had more time to practice with this team?
Wow, that's a great question. We've spent a lot of time in the last couple weeks on our doubles. I think that I've felt like with this group, if we play singles like we're capable of playing, that it's a hard go to win four singles matches against us. And I think that maybe mixing up some doubles teams, trying to see if we actually have our best combinations out there. But you start going with matches and playing and hey, we don't have time for this. We don't have time to switch up doubles teams and that kind of stuff. But we've spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks trying to shore up our doubles. And I've heard you guys on your podcast talk about, hey, if they can get this doubles down, and with John, and I've heard you guys say, if they can get this doubles figured out and fixed, then they have a shot. And we've listened to those voices outside, and but I think honestly, our practices are different when school's out and classes are out. And um I think that we're in a good spot right now and excited to play.
Let me tell you, my day would be practice, gym session, rose garden, back to practice, back to the facility. That would be my day in Durham for those
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like the worst day. I know you're focused on this weekend, but of course, this week, portal has opened as well. And you have been open to adding pieces through the portal in recent seasons. All one needs to do is look at Elena Yu in the roster this year to speak
Yeah.
to that fact. How normalized feels like, I mean, that's a word you can use in roster construction. What role does the portal play for you now?
I think it's a additive. I don't think that uh, it's kind of a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're in a position where where we've had to worry about losing players to the portal. We've been fortunate in my almost 30 years here. We've never had anybody leave. We've never had anybody transfer. And we've had I think one walk-on who transferred just because she wanted to play, and wanted to go and be a part of a team and play. But the portal's an interesting thing because I think the better players, by the time they're in the portal, it's already set up where they're going.
Yeah.
For the most part, or narrowed it down to one or two schools through, whether it's through coaches or communication and stuff. So I think it's a little bit of a false narrative that it's a open open thing. I know, that there's Danny and I were talking about one of the girls in there this week, and the portal opens at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, and she's already at 8:10 knows where she's going. I mean, then that's already been done, and so um, I don't think that it's necessarily an even recruiting ground how it was supposed to be set up, but at the same time, if we have a spot, we definitely look and watch and see what's happening there. And I don't think it's something where we consciously say, okay, let's save a scholarship just in case of the transfer portal, who's in the transfer portal. I think it's more, okay, we didn't get who we really wanted, or who we think can make an impact, so let's see what happens that way. I don't think that's our primary focus in recruiting. where I think some other places it's okay, let's have a scholarship available for that portal.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. In my experience, college kids are pretty decisive and make choices in 10 minutes. Like that's isn't that everyone's experience with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is certainly fascinating and yeah, I mean again, it's portal season. Everyone's keeping an eye on it. How can you not? All right.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
check it. We're checking it every, a couple times a day, but
Yeah.
it's not, I think that if we had signed who we wanted or someone didn't turn pro that we wanted to have on our roster, I think we felt a different way.
Yeah,
So,
no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Last two questions for you. I'm going to ask you to put on your pundit hat here, which, by the way, is one of my favorite hats you wear whenever I get you to come
yeah.
on this show. Seven other matchups in the round of 16. If you weren't all in on your matchup, Duke Auburn, which of course is a fantastic one we're looking forward to broadcasting 5 p.m. Eastern Time on our Crack Rackets YouTube channel. Um, Pick another matchup. I'll list them for you: Georgia Cal, Michigan Texas, Stanford Oklahoma State, Virginia Tennessee, UNC NC State, LSU Ohio State, Texas A&M UCLA. Which intrigues you most and why?
Um, if you're looking for close battle matches, I think that's a little bit of a different. I mean, the Texas Michigan one is a little interesting to me. Um, that one. Ohio State Stanford is a kind of a not one that probably a lot of people had in your brackets. I don't know. The one down the street from me is always interesting to see because there's something always happens in that match, whatever it is. There always seems to be some kind of controversy in that UNC NC State match, and it's turned into quite a rivalry, to be honest with you. And 10 years ago, that wasn't a rivalry at all. Or, I feel like us and UNC, we've always been rivals and I've always played for stuff. But, Simon's done a great job there of building that program. And so it has some opportunities to be a rivalry match. And so, um, that match is definitely interesting, and there's just fascinating stories. The UCLA that what happened with Stella and her daughter is just unbelievable. That like you couldn't have. There's no one that could have written that one up, and it's just I don't know if there's no winner in that match for that family, and I've known Stella a long, long time, and I remember seeing the daughters when they were babies on recruiting trips, and I can't imagine being in that position for either one of them. And so I think just there's a lot of great stories and interesting stories on really as you look at every match.
Yeah, I so thoroughly agree. I am going to throw one more tangent off of that at you because, again, when I write the book, it's more than just Isner, a complete history of college tennis. This will be a part of the discussion. The Stanford women's tennis magique. Is that still a thing? Like, do you always see when it's an unseeded Stanford team just looming? Do they still carry that same pre-COVID gravitas that like you always keep an eye in the back of a mind as someone who understands the history of college tennis?
Yeah, I think so. I think even looking when we were looking at our schedule, I felt like that. And I think when you and I talked, and Cal wasn't off to a great start, but I was like, that's a brutal weekend. That Cal Stanford trip, not just the trip, but I having to play both of those teams, and we played it back-to-back days, without a day off in the middle, and going to Stanford. I think mentally there's something about that, that they definitely carry some weight, and you know, I. I've again been around a long time. I've known Frankie since he was 8 years old. I coached against Frankie's dad, and and I got a chance to see Frankie's dad Frank out there at our match and say hello to him, but there definitely been that's been the benchmark, and I hope for college tennis, I hope Frankie does. I hope they have some success and keep that thing rolling. I think it's good for everybody, but yeah, I mean, there's no one ever that's going to convince me, oh, you have an easy match that you're playing Stanford, or hey, this isn't the same Stanford team as it was, 10 years ago or whatever. No one's ever going to convince me of that. It's always in my mind, playing Stanford is always going to be a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And yeah, you did get that double West Coast trip, them, Cal, a heck of a weekend for the Blue Devils, as people who have followed your season know. My last question for you: Auburn coming up 5 p.m. By the way, if you and Brian wanted to come to some sort of arrangement of like we'll play at 5, you guys play 8:30, and then all of our fans will just travel over to you, and we'll call it a Research Triangle evening. Um, but talk me through, again, in your mind, what's the biggest strength of this Auburn team, and what's it going to take for the Blue Devils to knock them off?
Yeah, I mean they beat us last year in the kickoff
Hmm.
here at our place, and you know some of those girls are still here, and obviously Bennett's had a great year. Okotoya's had a great year. Um, you know Jordan is a championship experienced coach, even though he's in his first year as a head coach. He's been around championship players and championship programs, and I think that they're going to be as prepared as they can possibly be. Um, those girls have had, you look at some of the wins DJ's had, and obviously Ross Star going there and both helping bolster that lineup a little bit. And they're tough. They're a feisty group. They were a feisty group when we played them here last year. And for us, I think we have to make sure that we are emotionally invested as we can possibly be, because they are going to be, and we cannot let them come in here and get the best of us on an emotional level. And if we can do that, then and just play and let the tennis take care of itself, and see what happens. I love our group. I love where we are, how we've been practicing, and but I think if I don't know if you've had a chance to speak with Jordan, but I think that they're playing really well, and they have a lot of belief in their. If you had asked him the same question, would you take a being in the round of 16 and 19? I'm sure he would have said, of course I would, at the beginning of the year. And I think they're playing a little bit free, and playing some really good tennis.
Yeah, now 4:30 Thursday for those curious. That's the Jordan Zabo conversation scheduled.
Got it.
I will ask him that question, I promise. And yes, I can also promise I will be watching Duke
Yeah.
Auburn. It's one of the matches of the Sweet 16 Super Regional weekend, and again, it's a credit to your team. It's very, very difficult, just mathematically, to miss the indoors and finish as a top 8 seed. You almost have to go undefeated in regular season conference play. That's what the Duke Blue Devils did, and now they're through to the round of 16. Of course, head coach Jamie Ashworth, thank you as always for taking the time to chat. Very much appreciate having you here on the show today. You've set a tone for day 2, my friend. Like everyone's going to be chasing this interview the rest of the day, but appreciate you taking the time to join once again.
Of course, hopefully we get a shot at you next week too.
I, I look forward to it. Good luck this weekend, Coach. Appreciate you joining.
All right, take care.
Record